My name is Ryan. I'm the marketing director here at Theatrical Outfit.
And I'm Brandel C. Jones. I'm the connectivity director for Kenny Leon's True Colors Theater Company.
And welcome to She's Got Game. I'm so excited. This is a partnership between both True Colors and TO as part of our community outreach programs from each theater. Brandel's going to tell us just a little bit about how tonight came to be.
Well, when we realized that both of our theaters had basketball-themed plays in our seasons, in our upcoming seasons, we realized that we could use this as an opportunity to talk about what's happening nationally as well as internationally for men and women in basketball. So we were happy to come together with Theatrical Outfit. Theatrical Outfit and True Colors have a great history of connecting and partnering. So we're very happy to have this great panel of artists, as well as someone who has experience on the court, both in college and in the and in WNBA. So we know you're in for a real treat tonight.
Also, do you want to tell them about your show?
Oh yes. Oh my goodness, thank you, Ryan.
Yeah.
This is why we do this together. So at True Colors next season, we are very excited to bring in That Serious He-Man Ball by Lamont, and we are going to have our director on the panel here tonight, Eric Little of Clark Atlanta University. So all of that will be announced soon. Tickets will be on sale, but definitely happy to start having the conversation now about these important issues.
Yep, and our basketball play is Flex. We have our final 2 weeks coming up. It's a world premiere by Cantress Jones, set in the 90s, so my 90s baby heart is super excited by the score that I get to listen to every time I see the show, that looks at the rise of the WNBA and what it was like for women playing basketball in high school at that time and what it could mean to go pro. So tickets are on sale now. As a matter of fact, you can get them before you leave here tonight if you want to talk to box office on your way out. Also, the bar is open throughout this tonight, so feel free to sneak out at any time and get another drink. And with that, we're going to kick things off. I'd like to introduce Hailey, who's one of our brilliant actors in Flex, to do a little monologue from the show.
Ghost Star, what you gonna do? What you gonna do? What you gonna do? This belly can't hold me. This belly can't hold me. What you gonna do, baby girl? What you gonna do, baby boy? Should have seen me last night. Mama, did you see me last night? Did you see it? I was so hot last night. I bet coach was having flashbacks to when you was the point guard. 0.8 seconds on the clock. I snatched that ball from that girl. I was like, give me my cheese. She tried to take it back. I was moving too fast. Had to tell her, you can't hold me. I want to get inside of Sharice. She was right under the basket, and I ain't no ball hog. But you know, they double teamed me. I had no choice. All I could see was the goal. My shot was a rainbow swoosh. Nothing but the bottom of the net. You should have heard them screaming my name. My first buzzer beater ever. I finally know I'm just as good as you. No more plain old Arkansas dirt courts for me, mama. No more dusting in my eyes, my ankles, my fingernails. I'm gonna win regionals, then states. Ain't no way you gonna believe this, but scouts are coming here to Plano. You said by the time I got older there'd be a girls' NBA. You were right. I'm going to the WNBA. Shaman ain't the only one who can make it. Folks call us double dribble. Get it? 'Cause we twins and both of us can dribble. Get it? One other thing, mama. I've been saving money. I'm about to get that car you promised me. Yeah, I found a little red car, my favorite color. See, I remember everything you said, and I'm gonna do whatever it takes to make it. And after I get recruited, every dream we had is gonna come true.
Awesome. All right, we're going to start the panel. Leading the discussion is our very own Addae Moon. So he's going to come down, he's going to introduce you to everyone and kick things off.
I guess I can. Hey, y'all, thank you for coming. I'm Addae Moon, the Associate Artistic Director here at TL, and I'm gonna bring the panel up one at a time. So let's start with Coach Keisha Brown. You can sit here, Coach. Next, let me get Miss Hailey Elizabeth, the star of the show. Let me get Mr. Pedro Harris, our director, and the director of that series, He-Man Ball, Mr. Eric J. Little. So before we begin, I'm just gonna have everybody just tell us a little bit about yourselves. Start with you, Coach.
Such a compound question. Wow, where do I start?
Wherever you want to start.
No, we're not going to be here all night. Well, my name is Keisha Brown. I am an original ATLian, born and raised in Atlanta. Graduated from Woodward Academy onto the University of Georgia. I was the 1996 Naismith Player of the Year with Kobe Bryant. Most of you guys have heard of him. So he was the male, and I was the female counterpart to that. Did 5 years at the University of Georgia, majored in communication studies. Graduated, and I took my chances and went to the WNBA. I went undrafted and was there 8 years. And as most of you know, the WNBA is a summertime league, so we subsidize a lot of our income by going overseas. So I spent a total of 10 years round the clock playing basketball and retired in 2013. I am now one of the 2 athletic directors at the Galloway School in Atlanta, as well as a high school coach, varsity high school coach, as well as an NCAA official for women's basketball.
Oh, wow. I am not as lived, but that's all right. I'm Hailey Elizabeth. I play Star Jones in Flex. This is my first Atlanta theater production, so I'm so excited to be here and a part of this community. I'm originally from the greater Los Angeles area, that's where I'm from, and went to school out there at Occidental College. I've lived here for the last few years and you might have seen me on a few things on film and television as well. I'm excited to be here.
Great, yeah. I am Pedro Harris. I'm a director, choreographer, and writer. Glad to be the director of this wonderful piece called Flex. So I went to Alabama State University, music and theater there, and traveled the world, Stevie Wonder, things on Broadway. So I'm glad to be here working in Atlanta. Being home for a season is really wonderful and delightful. Glad to be in the ATL.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. I am Eric J. Little, an Atlanta-based actor, director, and educator. First of all, I'm always excited when these 2 theaters specifically get together. I have a lot of love for True Colors and TO, being blessed to work with both of them on a number of projects as an actor and a director, but I've been working in the Atlanta area for a while now, about 17 years.
Ooh, that's a long time.
Thank you. And also a professor at Clark Atlanta University. CAU. And, I played basketball when I was young. But yeah, it didn't work out. I love playing basketball. But yeah, excited to be here. And I loved Flex. It was amazing. I got a chance to see it and loved the show.
So Patrick, I'm gonna start with you, the little 2-part question.
Yes, sir.
Now, so this is your second sports-related show that you directed for Theatrical Outfit. So tell me, are there some similarities about your first show, which was the Royale, set in the early 20th century, about boxing, And now you have this late 20th century play about Black women playing basketball. Are there some similarities, connections between these two plays?
Absolutely. Like, the first thing is physicality. You get that right off the bat. One's more cardio-driven basketball, more stamina-driven. They kind of crisscross that way. And then being a person of color, you definitely get that color relations of how we do it and how our language is different. But what stands out to me to the most of it is that in the storytelling of it, that it starts off with the what. Everybody want to see, they see what they do or how they perform. But a lot of people are not interested in the why. If you're going to truly solve any problem that you go to, if you go to the doctor and you say, what's wrong? The next question is, why? Why is that going on? And a lot of times in both situations with the young Black women and stuff, they're not interested in what, just do what you're supposed to do. And the same thing boxing-wise, just do what you're supposed to do, not interested in the why. So that similarity just stick out like an arrow in my heart about that. Not really interested in the why, but they want to get to what. Sometimes they love our rhythm, but they hate our blues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So in terms of, because you direct all kinds of shows, musicals, straight plays, whatever, is there a different approach to a show, directing a show that's so physical?
It starts the same way. Everything starts with story. So everything starts the same way, then it'll branch off in different departments. If it's a musical, if it's about the Army, what I did with directed Eric, about the Army, the Air Force. If it's about basketball, it's about, so they branch out different ways. They end up in the same place, but they don't start the same way. So if it's physical, for me as a director, I always go and learn something about it. Like with Flex, I started playing basketball, went to Amber, got my basketball, and went to the court every 2 times a week at least to get the basketball inside of me. The same thing with boxing. Then at the end of this stuff, when we get the physicality of that, like the intellect speaks, but also the body tells you what to do as well. So I listen to that as an interpreter of what the text is going to be, because it comes through the body. And as people of color, we move on, but we talk like this. This is part of our physicality, and we speak that way. So it kind of lines up that way for me. And then at the end of this process, I tell, no matter what the show is, these 3 things: to be purposed, know why you're there; to be honest, and that comes with a lot of listening versus talking; and then to be detailed. So what I call it my PhD that I give to my actors, to be purposed, be honest, and be detailed. So if we start wherever we start and we end there, we're absolutely wonderful to get a great production.
Yeah. Great. That's great. A great little process talk. Thank you. Eric, so you've seen Flex, and I know you've been prepping for that Serious He-Man ball. What are some of the connections between the 2 plays?
Of course, the easy one, basketball. But no, I think what I love about it, and even just seeing Hailey do that monologue again, is number one, and Pedro was sort of speaking on it, it's the competitive nature, but also the swagger and the culture of not just basketball players, whether men or women, but Black ones. It's a culture, it's a nature to it. When you come see Flex, come see Flex. When you come see it, you will see that energy that flows, with the talented cast, and of course with Pedro doing his thing, but within the writing, it's there. It's in the way they speak, and then of course it matches the way they move. But it's a beautiful thing, and it's the same thing in that series He-Man Ball. It's the way they speak. It's the way that, we're going to work on the movements. It's all of those things. It's a swagger to it. It's an energy. It's a competitive nature that challenges each other, but also touches something. You know how it is. It's like, even if, and I was joking earlier, but actually being serious too. It was like when we used to play ball together as kids, and if any of you did this, especially like basketball or something, there's something in a game that if a fight or something or argument breaks out, it's usually not about the game. It's usually about something else. But the game brings that out because of the competitive nature, because of the culture. It touches on something. And I think we see it in Flex a lot of times with, and of course I want to tell you a story, but between them, there's a competitive thing. Because of course they are competing, and they're talking about trying to go to college and things of that nature. And I think that connects to He-Man Ball, dreams. With He-Man Ball, they are older men, so they're talking about either current dreams or broken dreams, versus in Flex, they're talking about upcoming dreams. So it's a lot of similarities in that. One of the themes that I'm thinking about with He-Man Ball, and Jamil and I were talking about this, I said, who has the winning strategy? Who has the winning strategy? And I think, it's, of course, Coach can connect to this. It's like in basketball or in any sport, strategy is a big part of it. It's about your skill, it's about your talent, but it's about your strategy. So in both of them, it's about basketball, but it's also about the strategy in life. And that is what they're arguing about. It's whether somebody's arguing about who has the strategy to win on the court so I can get out of Arkansas, so I can go to my favorite school or do whatever, or I've been through this in He-Man Ball, and who has a winning strategy? You said we should be doing this and we're not doing this, and now I'm sitting here with broken dreams. And so all this competitiveness, all of this energy is coming together on this court, and it's all about, we want to all be better together, but we sometimes fight each other, and then that's how we learn from each other and eventually get where we need to be. So who has the winning strategy?
Yeah, and that made me think of in Flex as well, this idea of being baptized by the dirt.
Yeah.
The fact that, to deal with a situation, sometimes you got to play. You got to have that competition, you got to have that clash. So yeah, no, that's
the
great.
love of the game too. I think in both
Yeah.
things that are similar to them, that's what pulls us in. It's just the love of the game. And working with Coach, when Coach came in with us, we could just see the love of the game all around her, how she played, how she took care of the ball, how she told us what to do and protected. It's like, wow, I mean, that was beautiful. And definitely, I got a chance to see Kenny Leon do serious He-Man ball. So I got a chance to really see that. It's a great play and seeing the physicality in that as well.
And let me tell you, like you said, of course, Kenny here was the original people in He-Man Ball. It was Kenny Leon, Tony Vaughn, who's a very, talented actor here in town who everybody loves, and the great Tom Jones.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that was amazing.
show.
Great.
Yeah. So Coach, being a professional athlete, former professional athlete, currently a coach, college superstar, what were the things in the play that resonated for you personally?
It was definitely like a nostalgia of sorts, because I can look back, like being who I am right now, and go back through my career and say, like, I was a star. I was so many of these other teammates. I went from being the #1 player in the country in high school to being injured, right? To being a role player as a professional. So I've been through all those levels that, athletes like have to go through. A lot of times, like, it's always at 1%, right? From high school, you get anybody on a varsity team, 1%. So one person is going to go to college, and from college, 0.3 is going to be a professional.
Right.
So, I mean, those numbers are so staggering slim that, trying to teach my kids like what that actually looks like, you have to have more than just. So even when I talk to my kids now who aspirations are going to the next level and play in college basketball, take the test. Like, if you were to just walk on campus and just be a student, do you like that school? Because, right now, for me in my career, I'm basically in line waiting for a knee transplant for my left knee when I get finished, because I've just played so much basketball. But like, heck, I don't even care about that right now. But it's one of those things where I was hurt for 2 years in college. I spent 5 in college, but I would choose Georgia all over again, because for me, like, I took that test. I didn't play ball for 2 years and I still chose Georgia. Right. So, for me, like, that space is important. But you see, like, being the star of the show, for her character, like, she knew she was the ish. You couldn't tell her anything, but you also have this other teammate that knows she's the ish but doesn't really care, because it comes with the territory, and that's kind of how she lived it. And so that was me for so many spaces, and in high school I lost friends because I was Sydney, because there was that jealousy component. And then you have parents who was like, well, you should have what she has, but in all excess, like, what you have is what you have. Like, it's your path, it's your journey, it's your blessings. And so I lost friends for that, not understanding that space in high school. And so when I went on to play, college ball, like I didn't talk to those friends for probably till I became a pro, because we divided and we went different spaces, and it was, no fault of our own. We weren't mad at each other, no hard feelings anywhere. We were just on another path, right? So it just brought back a lot of nostalgia and just some of the similarities. Of course, like I was excited coming in here because I got a chance to kind of bring that back up, and we grew up playing pickup ball, I'm a 79, I just made the cut, right? I'm 70s, baby. So, but we grew up playing pickup ball, and that's asphalt, that's concrete. That's like me not having another female to play against, which to this day, I would rather not play against another female. I'd rather play against a guy. And so like being baptized in the dirt, like, yeah, let's check it up. Let's see if you better. And then if you better, and sometimes my friends would get mad at me and be like, all right, race you from this mailbox to the next. It was those kind of things. But like nowadays, it's not there. Like it is vanished, to be honest. Like kids don't know how to play pickup ball, even if they have a gym. They don't know how to play pickup ball anymore because they don't know how to advocate for themselves outside of doing it on social media. This is a physical presence. This is, we always say when you're overseas, be where your feet are. And if you're always like looking at that next profile, or if you're always looking at somebody's great edit on how great they are, right? Or in these days, who has an offer from a school and they are freshmen, like in high school, you know what I'm saying? It's like, who cares? Like that offer, to me, it absolutely stands for nothing, because that coach is probably going to be somewhere else the next 2 years. Right. So, this place, the play, like I think I've seen it like 3 times full now. And to your point, Pedro, I get something else every single time. Like you have that coach, right? It's like, this is what you do. This is what we're going to do. I don't care if you're on live flex. We're going to run it anyway. And guess what we say? All right, we're going to run flex. It's where we were. And for these times and for these young people that are out in this world now, it's so many other distractions. They can still go home and not be home. Whereas we go home, we know we're going to have food on the table. We know we got to do homework. We know we got to go to bed because we got to get up and do it all over again. And so the mental component for us, I think that what made us stronger in our generation doesn't make our young kids as strong, because they have so many components that are pulling at them and are forcing them to go one way outside of them being mentally capable of handling themselves.
Right. Oh, definitely. Wow. That was an inside scoop. Thank you. Hailey, so you played ball in high school. And you're an actor now. What are the transferable skills? Like what did being an athlete in high school teach you that you use now as an actor professionally?
That's a great question. Being an athlete in high school is very similar to, specifically with theater, of this idea of like an ensemble. An ensemble is a team, right? We're all coming together for one greater goal. And especially a play like this that has so much heavy thematic material. I mean, we talk about everything from women's rights to sexuality, and we have to take care of each other. I was just talking to someone today about how I absolutely love my cast. I wish they were here today, because even being here on this stage alone, I'm like, I feel naked without them. That's my team. I can't do without them. I can't score without them. And we take care of each other. And so that's definitely the connection, is like this idea of team and cast. And that's one of the reasons why I absolutely love theater, is that ensemble idea, that we're coming together for a greater purpose and a greater goal. And then on top of that, also, there's this idea of discipline. Even with this play, when we first were doing it, it is a workout, y'all. It is not a joke. What I just did right now, I do that, but run around the whole stage with the basketball. So I gave y'all a toned down version of that. And so having that discipline to take care of your body, that's related to, as an athlete and a theater professional. Being careful what we eat. I come in here an hour early and I run these stairs. I play with the ball. I stretch every day, every morning. I feel like an athlete.
Right.
Because you are an athlete.
Yeah. So That's definitely the similarities is this idea of a team and a cast and then the discipline of taking care of yourself. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. There are more questions, but before we get to those questions, so Candace Jones, who is the playwright of this piece, is also a part of the Next Narrative project that True Colors initiated, I think, a year ago. And there's an actor who will be presenting something that Candace wrote specifically for that project.
Well, before we turn to our amazing artist, I just want to say a bit about how fabulous she is. This artist is the winner of our 2022 Next Narrative Monologue competition, which is a national competition which introduces teenagers from around the country, high schoolers from around the country, to today's contemporary amazing Black playwrights. And this artist won our Atlanta Regionals Next Narrative Monologue competition this year. She's absolutely amazing. And she just began her freshman year at Brandeis University a few weeks ago, and she came just in time for this performance, so we're very lucky.
Yes.
And I will now turn it over to LaNiyah S.K. Grovell performing It's Aaliyah for Me by Candace Jones.
I felt in my spirit to read my free write out loud in class today. Thank you, Ms. Smith, for the opportunity. So, the whole class got on me last week because I had an opinion. Y'all remember Ms. Smith gave the free write, "What celebrity death upset you the most?" Everyone had opinions. Some folks said Juice WRLD, some folks said Michael Jackson, but I said Aaliyah, because to me, she is the greatest female R&B singer ever. And that's when everyone, even you, Miss Smith, the teacher, overreacted and started talking about Whitney Houston, Whitney Houston, Whitney Houston. Some folks said Beyonce. She ain't dead yet, so she don't count. Then they got back to Whitney, Whitney, Whitney. Listen, I love Whitney Nippy Houston, but she don't represent me. Y'all can roll your eyes if you want to. It's Aaliyah for me. Whitney had a beautiful voice, okay? The way she sang the national anthem almost makes me, the way she sang the Star Spangled Banner, almost makes me forget racism. That's cool too. But I wasn't mad when she died. Her voice and her body were all messed up. What folks saw growing up in the 80s and 90s, I didn't see. I saw pain, shame, butched wigs, and addiction. And I guess Bobby Brown was fine back in the day, but I look at him now and I'm like, why, Nippy? Why? Oh. So, it's still Aaliyah for me. The Black Mermaid Princess. I still remember her Rock the Boat video. It looked like she was an angel already. She was the first person who ever made me ask my mama why people had to die. Why can't they just live forever? I took her death so hard, even as a little girl. And she was one of the first Black girls on TV to do goth or something like it. That Are You That Somebody? She had that hawk on her hand. Freeze beat to the vampire gods. Oh my gosh. Looking at her felt like I saw a Black girl who could control any creature on earth that she wanted. I mean, I get white people loved Whitney. She had the voice and the face, but Aaliyah was Aaliyah. She could dance and she had the flat stomach that all the girls still want. And when I heard that she wore shades all through her first album so that her beauty wouldn't get in the way of her talent, I thought that was so dope. Tell me who's got the guts to do that today. People kind of forgave R. Kelly for wanting to be with her. No, they kind of forgave him because they think he's a genius. Well, they forgave him because they forgive men for doing stuff like that. But he is not the subject at hand today. Back to Aaliyah, because I can sing along to her songs without losing my voice, because she was that dope tomboy that every girl wants to be, because looking at her was like looking at Black perfection that would never die. So y'all can have Whitney, Michael Jackson, Prince, Juice WRLD, whoever. It's Aaliyah for me.
It was very interesting hearing that and thinking about this next question, because one of the things that I love about Flex and about Cantress's work is how it centers Black women. And so I would love to hear from y'all why is it important that we tell stories that center Black women? One, and I think the second part of that question is, why is it also so challenging to tell those stories?
I guess I got this. It was like, go ahead. Gosh, I don't know if I'm gonna get real deep on this, but I do believe that Black women in this country have been told how to be, who to be, what to be, since they've been here. And we have not all had a space. I mean, I'm not gonna take it all the way back to slavery, but we haven't had a space to own who we are unapologetically in this country. And who we are has been written for us in so many ways. And being authentically us has been stolen from us as well. I mean, you think about our style, our swag, the way we talk and carry ourselves. People love to exploit that and market that. It's not ours. We don't get to own that. And it's not until we get a play like this that's written by a Black woman, performed by Black women, talking about Black women, that we can really authentically see how beautiful and complex we are. It's been such an absolute privilege, because when you all see this play, as you should, you'll see that there's 5 young Black girls on the team, and they're all similar, but they're also so different. And they all have their own unique struggles and stories. But there's also this sisterhood that we just understand as Black women, like we get each other. And I think this play creates a space for that.
I think I'm gonna take it from a different perspective, because I actually lived in Europe for so long, and it becomes a matter of complexion. You see, I'm lighter than you, but I'm no different than you. We have so many similarities that we don't even know, right? Because we haven't discussed. But to the naked eye, as I go into Europe, right, and I'm playing in Europe, and I'm everywhere from Eastern Europe to all the way over in Russia, and I'm not Black, right? I'm Brazilian. I'm Cuban. My hair texture is different, so I can't be Black. The stereotypes that are had, right, made by TV and being viewed to Europeaners is not what I am to them face to face, right? I like different cultured foods. I'm not a hamburger, hot dog kind of chick, So it's like, whoa, wait, and it's like, well, okay, well, let me go ahead and bust the stereotypes open, right? And so you spend that time over there, and you effortlessly, you spend that time breaking stereotypes, and then you come back home, right? And you can go 40 minutes north and you find yourself breaking those same stereotypes. So it's really interesting because I think a lot of it, unfortunately, not having to apologize, right, about who we are. Like in this world, we already have two X's. We're black and we're female, and so we're dodging bullets every single day, and we can't just live, right? It's the same thing with black men for that matter. It's like you're dodging bullets just because of the uniqueness of way God made us. And so it's being able to do that, but it's also being able to be proud and basically not apologize, right? And it's like, I mean, I'm not sorry. Like, I'm from south side of 285, but I live up in Dunwoody. Like, I don't care, but it's those things that, if we have to continue to break stereotypes that, one, we don't even know we have, right, that are projected upon us, and we have to break those stereotypes, and then so be it, break them. And I'll take this a step further. When you play basketball as long as I have and you get in those arenas, the first thing that people always say, well, they're all lesbians. No, they all aren't lesbians. Yes, there is a high number, but they all aren't lesbians. And it doesn't mean that everybody is going to turn into a lesbian, because you end up playing basketball or this sisterhood that you have, that all of a sudden all is one. So, you have young ladies in the league that constantly have to fight that. So it becomes a whole nother realm, right? And so let's take it back to Flex. You have 5 young ladies who they all are experiencing different things in their high school lives. And then it's like, okay, so do they wrap themselves into that stereotype and that's how they see them? Or do they go about being who they are, and how their families raised them? To be positive, strong women who you just keep cracking stereotypes. And that's essentially what it is. You have to keep cracking stereotypes that, one, you probably don't even know. I don't know what I don't know. I don't know what you think about me even the first time that you met me, but it's just cracking those stereotypes and letting people know that, like, okay, like I am Keisha. This is who she is, and that precedes when I walk into the door every time.
Yeah. I love that. Something I love about Kendra's writing is that she breaks up what I call a block of black. Sometimes we do black things, they be very general instead of being very specific. Her writing is very specific about it. When I talk to her about it, it's about the women are beautiful, they're strong, they're all those things. We try to make it be one thing, but it was just one of those things, like Shakespeare's particular way, Chekhov is a particular way. Black culture is a particular way. It's very specific. How you do it, how you enter to it. So it makes sense to break up what I call that block of black. Her writing is wonderful in that way, that it honors it, but it shows that the rawness is what it is. I always, for me, as I'm being a black male in directing the piece, I learned things about the woman's culture that I did not know. Listening to them and hearing their voices and what they thought about it, I was like, I did not know that. And do whatever. So it was a good education for me to be a support system for that and a guidance for that, and also a listening ear for that as well. But the women are strong and wonderful and beautiful, and there are many things. It can't be one thing. We don't get a chance to be a black person, know everything about it. I'm not one person. I'm not everybody. I'm just one person. And so the same thing about all the women they're just one person. So they don't have to have the weight of the entire culture on their back saying one thing. Just one person. Just see me as one human being. Yes, I'm proud to be a person of color, but I'm a human being first.
Yeah, I think I know there's something very unique just about black women. And as Pedro said, of course, with the both of us being black men, but it's when you raised by a black woman, got black grandmothers, your aunties, your sisters, your nieces, and then even with me right now, I teach, in the theater department. That means, at Clark Atlanta University, HBCU, it's comprised of mostly young black women. And there's something very unique about them. And I love what Pedro was saying. I love about Flex as well. And I think Hailey said it as well. All 5 of the players, they love basketball, but I love this about her writing too. They're all unique. Yeah. They're all very different. Very different. And I think that is, it kind of shows that specificity is beautiful because it shows and sort of like, what Coach was saying to, some people think, oh, you're black, you're a black woman, or you're just this. It's like, nah. And especially like, as the brothers tell you, even if we know our black women's like, nah, because you might know somebody be like, nah, she's not like that.
Right.
It's like, that might be somebody else, but she's not like that. And I think the thing about it, and I love what Hailey said too, the uniqueness is not to be exploited, but explored and admired and learned from. And I think that's the difference, and why it should be centered, because it's something that's so beautiful that you can learn from them. Mm-hmm. As much as I teach my students, there are many times I'm taught by them. Like Patrick was saying, sometimes you just sit and listen and you're like, oh, I never thought about it like that. Or I never saw it like that. Or the best one I would say is one of my former students, I was working with one young black woman on a monologue, and I was like, what is going on? There's a disconnect. I just didn't understand what was going on. And one of my former students, who was one of my good students, she was sitting kind of close, and nobody else was really kind of paying attention. But she saw it. And she asked the young lady she asked her a question, and the young lady, and she responded to her, and I was like, oh. And I was like, thank you. But it was something that they understood that I didn't get. Right. And in that moment, it taught me so much more, not just about that moment, but from there on, how to teach and to pay attention to certain things. And I learned that from a young black woman.
Yeah. And I think, too, the power of these stories that center black women. Today we had a wonderful matinee. Full house with a bunch of teenagers. And I actually want to ask you this question, too, Coach. And it was amazing because I think for me, as a person who was in the audience, I was listening to the play through their ears. Yeah. And it was such a completely different experience. And I know, Coach, you've had some students to come and check out the show. What's been their reaction to the show?
They're trying to learn the step. They're so busy trying to learn the step. But I was watching the play, and I was looking down at them, because it was two of them that were here, and I kind of looked down at them, and actually one was a young white girl, and another was a black girl. And it's interesting because my white kid, she 100% relates to our black athletes. Would rather play with black athletes than with other white athletes, my opinion. And so I was just kind of looking down, and you can see them kind of snickering at each other when little things were happening. I think some stuff kind of got over their heads. In terms of like when you guys got deep when we were at Sydney's house, I think some of that stuff kind of got over their heads. But at the same time, me knowing each one of my kids individually, you had some stuff that stuck. And I think that was the thing. So I caught myself kind of looking like down and seeing like how they were reacting to certain things that I knew were about to happen, just to see, their bump of the reaction. But of course, like the biggest thing is, because we're trying to go for a high school championship this year too. And this is like our go season. So when that end was happening and coaches and everything, you guys were getting it over there. I'm just kind of like eyeballing them and see what's going on. And it's like, we got to get this step right here. I was like, that's going to be the practice before the game. We're not doing that at the game. But I mean, it was good to see that. But it was also good to see them like just locked into the whole play the entire time.
Yeah, definitely. So now we're going to approach the elephant that's in the room. Sister Brittany, who is having some issues in Russia right now because of some problematic drug charges. I want to know, what was your first reaction when you heard about Brittany Griner's case and her situation? What was your first reaction to hearing about it?
What? That's what I thought. I was like, what? That's like, what? That's like, and it's still going on, and what? I just couldn't believe the level of non-communication that we only got pieces of the story from pieces. So I just didn't know what, and I know sometimes things happen and we don't know what. So then we can get to that, like I said earlier, that why, and we can do whatever. But that was my first response. I just couldn't believe it. And it's going on. That was my first response.
Right.
I think same thing. I was, sorry, turned mine off. I was like, say what now? I was like, what's going on? What's happening? And yeah, trying to get, like you said, the whole story and just trying to figure out what's happening. Yeah, that was the main thing, the first reaction.
Yeah. How about y'all?
I think for me, I'll probably get in trouble for saying this. I was more like, why she go back?
Right.
You know, I played in Russia, and a lot of us have. I played in Russia, and you 100%, like, who has a choice if they want to live in Russia, not outside of the Russians, right? We make a lot of money over there, and Brittany makes a lot of money. And so her going back, I think the question was like, why did she go back? That was my first, like, why did she go back? Because normally when you go back, you kind of partner with the other foreigners that are going back, and you're on the same flight.
Oh, okay.
So from an intimate standpoint, knowing the routine, that was my first thing. It was like, well, why was she the only one? So that's where that was. But then it was about collecting information. And then you see like the wars going on. And, you know, the first thing that the media hits you with was it was a pawn. So, you know, it's hard to get like the real story. It's a real thing for the league and the sisterhood and what Phoenix Mercury went through. I mean, you can see it going down. It's matriculated over to on the men's side that they're now, you know, vouching to sell the team. But it's matriculated that way. But it's a real thing because it's not a lot of people, even me now being retired, that can say that we played in the WNBA. Because even when I played, it was 11, you know, and you had two what we call IR players, injured reserve, but whatever. So it was 13 roster spots, and you know, at one point we only had 12 teams. I think we're up to 14 right now, and they want to expand, but it just wasn't a lot of us. And so it was it was our PhD, right, as basketball players. Like you play in the WNBA, Keisha Brown WNBA team, and I can go overseas and I can make more money because I played in the WNBA. You know, and I make my money overseas and I come back and I'm a better player for the WNBA. And then the next thing I use that same thing, right? I played in LA for 2 years and I was a starter for LA for a year. And all it did was it moved me to that next step overseas for me to make more money. And that's how we have to live, like currently in the past, and I'm almost certain in the future. You know, and so it's just a tough bid, right? And where a lot of young ladies don't want to go overseas anymore. Contracts have gotten better in the WNBA. A lot of people don't want to go overseas because, you know, especially now, right? They don't want to be like, what if it's me? You don't want to deal with that, but you also don't want to miss out on tripling your money. So it's a hard thing. So like, you know, you could easily answer the question, like, why'd she go back? She got a check waiting on her, simply put, you know, and for that to kind of roll and snowball itself, and for her to be in the situation that she's in, like, it sucks. You know, we all know it sucks, and we breathe for her, and we want the best for her. You know, we're not gonna stop talking about it. Thank you for bringing it up. But it's a real issue, and it's a heart tug. You know, it's like a real heart tug.
To continue that conversation about why these WNBA players are going overseas, I think that also goes to the question of like this wage gap difference between the WNBA players and the NBA players. A lot of these, I mean, from what I've read of articles, it was Brittany's wife, I believe, who encouraged her to go. And I'm guessing that she's in some ways the breadwinner for that family. And so there's this pressure on her to bring home that bacon, you know? And I feel like for NBA players, because they make so much money, they don't have to worry about having to go across the seas to get the money that they deserve. And so there's that pressure that comes with it where, you know, she had to go outside of it. And then once she left, now she's like stuck. And that's something that I feel like WNBA players shouldn't have to go through. They shouldn't have to go outside of their own country to get what they're worth.
Yeah.
That's like artists, you know, at the time, the 20s and 40s, the same kind of scenario. You got to go away to be appreciated, you know.
That's true now.
Watch it.
But and to speak to that pay disparity, and this is from I think this is from CBS News from back in May. The average male NBA player earns $5.3 million a year, and this is from Basketball Reference Stars.com, and by comparison, the WNBA player earns an average of $130,000 a year. So that's a huge gap.
And it's I'll tell you this, the CBA, it's I think it's in its second year, and kudos to Sue Bird and Nneka Ogwumike and all those people that are in that WNBA union that really stood, you know, face to face, toe to toe with, you know, the people that control the contracts, right? Because when I played, and this was 2001 to 2010, right? It's a blanket contract. It's a blanket contract. And so this new CBA, one, it gave them way more money. I mean, you know, to get into the details of it, like they have a fertility clause in there. Because if I would have gotten pregnant when I was in the league, that's a liability, and other things would have happened. But now, I mean, and you see it. One of our sisters in I can't think of her name right now. I'm drawing a blank. But she played in Minnesota. She had a baby, and she was able to keep her contract, get paid, and play towards the end. And so that piece, like that stuff like that, it's important. Like if you want to have kids, like you think about it, we're playing basketball in like the peak of our fertility years. Right. And so we're holding back, you know, like I just had my first child at 42. I had to wait. Right. And now it's an opportunity for these young ladies to be able to have families and still be able to keep their jobs. And so the contracts have gotten a lot more individualized with this new CBA agreement. That, like I said, kudos to Nneka Ogwumike and Sue Bird for stepping up and doing what they do, because I mean it's important. You know, obviously, like the guys, they are making babies, but they're not, you know, having to carry them and all that good stuff. You know, but at the same token, to kind of balance and give a perspective, you think about the NBA, who, you know, they're in their 70th year of some sort, right? And we're pushing 30. So you think about that gap and what they started with when the men were in the ABA and what they were making. Like, think about what Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, one of the greatest, think about what he was making. He might have been pulling $2 million, you know, and you think about people of his stature now, and think about Shaq and what he was getting. Now you think about, like, LeBron was making 108 million. He didn't even throw on a Cleveland uniform before he walked out of high school. Mm-hmm. You know, so it's such a difference, right, in the way we are and the progressiveness of the sport, professional sports in general. But I mean, there is like stepping stones, there are curves. And I think for the women, I cannot, you know, kudos to the girls that are in there now, and they're putting that thing forward for us to be as strong and to keep, you know, keep the train moving for us to continue to do great things. And, you know, the same for women's soccer to that degree. Yeah. You know, and what Megan Rapinoe has done. Absolutely.
They're closing that gap in soccer, though.
Absolutely. Right? Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you can literally go across the board, and I've done these studies. Like, you can go across the board and you talk about tennis. And what Billie Jean King had to go through, you know, even when she had to do the battle of the sexes and what she was making versus what her counterpart was making. You can go to golf. Like, you can literally go down the line and you can see, like, there is a huge discrepancy in pay for the same swings.
Right. Yep. Right.
You know, so.
Right. And I know, Coach, like a part of the work, applause. I know a part of your work as an educator has to do with financial literacy and getting young female athletes to understand the money. So, what are some of the things that you tell them to keep an eye out for?
Man, that's a loaded question, because I'll probably give you something. I think, like, the biggest thing is, like, everybody has their eyes on WNBA, right? I think a lot of times our kids kind of skip levels. They feel like they got to skip a level. You know, and I think these levels are here for a reason, like it's part of your process. And for that matter, like, yeah, you need to go to college. Like, it ain't to work on your jump shot, it's to freaking get a degree.
Right.
You know, like, your jump shot gonna come because you're gonna spend time in the gym. But, you know, and it's also like that basketball is your ticket to anywhere you want to go in this world. And it was mine. And so you need that extra education in terms of, you know, being mentally in the books and knowing how to be disciplined and getting through those things that we go through in life. Freaking go to a house party. Like, see what that's like. See if you got the discipline enough to take your butt home at the end of the night because you got practice. You know, it's little stuff that like this that like, you know, our kids don't really understand, right? Because they've never really been through it. And then you go to the point of the maturity level, like when you get your first check when you're in the WNBA. You know, for a lot of us who are middle class, low income, however it is, when you get your first check, and I know everybody's had this experience, you get your first check and your name is on it, you gonna waste that check. Right. Like, let's be very clear. Right. That check is gonna get wasted because you know you got at least one more coming. And that's what a lot, you know, when I was in the league and I was, you know, 4th and 5th year in, you know, they wanted to go buy the designer jeans. They wanted the shoes. They, you know, Louis bags. Like, they want to walk in with a Louis bag. Like, everything's about drip these days. Put that check up. You know, like, put a third of it up. Like, something's going to happen. You know, for me, I went overseas, and I'm going to be flat out honest. I went overseas with a contract for 90 grand. I ain't see it because they didn't pay me. So guess what? Now I was back in my pool because of the payment that I didn't get from a contract that was supposed to be valid, you know? And so like, that's that rainy day, right? But if I had spent it, who would have known? I literally would have been in another man's country broke, you know? And so that piece is important. And that's what I tell them, like, go live your experience. Like, this basketball is your ticket. Like, it's your ticket, but you got to understand what to do like afterwards. So I always play games with my kids, and I'm always like, y'all know, like, you get in trouble, like, you're gonna need a lawyer. That lawyer make a whole lot of money, right? And, you know, nowadays Nike has done a great job of doing a development course where they take a lot of former players, and a lot of my sisters now are out at Nike in Beaverton, Oregon, because they've given them jobs, and it's developing shoes, and it's all kind of things that are around the game, and these are the things that like a lot of, you know, our girls and our guys, they need to know about, because that once you see that first check, everything that you thought you was learning, it's going out the window. Yeah. It's most definitely going out the window.
And to add to that, you can't play basketball forever.
LAB, life at the basketball.
Yes, that's a whole nother thing.
Yep.
You have to have those finances set up for after.
Yep. Well, and then I'll say this, and I'm probably getting verbal diarrhea. A lot of our kids forget they don't know how to interview. Because our interviewing is putting on a jersey and playing, right? It's the physical component of it. And so for 10 years, all I did was interview with a jersey on. And now when I actually have to go in and sit in front of you, right, and carry on a conversation and answer questions, like, how are these questions going to be answered? What kind of dialogue am I going to have? What kind of vocabulary am I going to use? What kind of clothes am I going to wear? You know, be more than what you're coming in for the interview. So if you're starting as a coach, then don't come in dressed in some practice gear. You know, show up looking like you want to be the GM or you want to be the AD at some point. You know, I think a lot of that stuff, like, it falls to the wayside because, you know, a lot of people get why I'm a hooper, I'm a basketball player. And it's not that. I've always told myself I'm an athlete. I can play any sport. You put anything in front of me outside of golf. Top Golf has all my money. But I'm an athlete. But at the same time, like, I'm going to give you an educated athlete. Like, I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm not going to be that jock you thought I was. Yeah.
Definitely. So I want to open it up to the folks that are out here watching and listening. Anyone have any questions for folks on the panel? Anybody?
So I've got a question. And I want to play devil's advocate. I hope everyone can hear me. So we're talking about the wage gap between men and females. There is a wage gap in modeling. Female models make way more than male models. I don't know if male models even make anything. So is that just because females are playing, and I enjoy the WNBA, we've got to see numerous WNBA games, but people don't fly through the air and dunk. The product is not as exciting as the male product, just because of the athleticism.
So I'm only gonna repeat your question so that they can actually hear it in terms of the mic. So I think the question that the brother was asking was, in terms of the wage gap, is it related to the dynamics of the sport when a woman plays it versus when a man plays it, or do you think it's something else behind that wage gap difference?
I think it's the entertainment value. I think it's pure entertainment value. You know, when you use models as an example, only the elite, right, can watch them walk them down the aisle, and we may not have access to those tickets. But when you go to an NBA game, there's corporate seating, there's general population, and there's people VIP. So you have it's a whole nother entertainment spectrum that you have access to. That I think what draws when you put it in terms of sport, and then when you put it in terms of fashion, because there's only so many. You know, we get the opportunity to watch Victoria's Secret on TV, and even when you see that, you only see about 300-400, and all of those people in there are designers themselves. So I think it's a very interesting question, and it's a totally different dynamic. I think just because of the interest in the entertainment value.
And I think just culturally as well, you know, in any business, men get paid more sometimes than women, just around across the board. It's not like, oops, surprise. But it's the same thing that we trickle down to. It's the same people are in charge of it think less than sometimes. The thought pattern behind it, not sometimes not the talent, but definitely sometimes like the thought pattern behind it is less than. People think that and they execute that with their money.
I think also, in terms of the athleticism, I think it also, because basketball has been so male dominated, like you said, it's the women's team has only been around, the WNBA has only been around for 30 years. But I don't think it's like sports in general, because then you have like volleyball. People are not watching a lot of male volleyball. They're watching the women play volleyball. So I think it just depends on the sport and how it's been historically and culturally recognized. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's tradition. And when you think back, like I think back to like high school when somebody said I'm going to the basketball game, everybody automatically thought you meant the boys game.
Right.
And it's like, you had a girls team too. You know, you had a couple of girls teams. You had the JV, it was like the same thing. But it's like, unless, and the thing is, it's almost like, you know, speaking as a man, but I can imagine it's like they have to, you know, you all, women basketball players had to fight harder to know, like you said, the entertainment value. But it's like, no, we can be just as entertaining. It can still just be a big game. I can attest to that. I remember I went to LSU for grad school. One of the greatest sporting events I ever went to was Tennessee versus LSU. And if you know anything about college basketball, when you say women's college basketball, one of the greatest teams ever is Tennessee. And it was like Tennessee was number one at the time and LSU was number 3. One of the greatest games, one of the greatest sporting events I ever went to, and it was women. So my thing is, it's like, it can be entertaining. Yeah. You know, I think you just have to want to go and see it.
Yeah, Jarrell.
You know, I'm interested. I saw a stat recently that said that there are a high level of like senior executives, vice presidents, people in leadership positions that have histories in sports. And I often think about the ways in which some of the qualities in sports, competitiveness, aggressiveness, but also teamwork and things like that, are often attributed to masculine persons. And it is seen as a benefit, but then also you have, like, you know, years ago, right, Sheryl Sandberg and the lean-in principles was also kind of refuted back against and saying that, well, actually we don't want women identifying persons, feminine persons, to be aggressive, to be competitive, like that it wasn't always looked at as a positive quality in leadership roles sometimes for women. I wonder, with those of you who all coach and Hailey, right, like how have your yourself often bucking back against what seems to be not just the glass ceiling, but also the way in which people view athletes and the ways in which that has worked out for certain persons.
So to repeat Jamil's question, for the folks watching, in terms of the idea of leadership being a masculine quality that men naturally have, as women athletes, and I would even say as a female actor, what are those challenges that you encounter in terms of this idea of leadership equaling masculinity all the time?
Okay. I think it's a very dynamic question because in the leadership role that I have to sit in as an athletic director, one, you don't see many female athletic directors. And so I'm normally at a table with white men. So, there's that component, but it's a respected thing, right? Because they know my background, they understand my background. And the competitive piece that you speak of, I think it's all ingrained in us, right? Once we play a sport or we play it at a high level, or just even competitively, in theater, I've come in and I've learned, these jokers right here, they competitive as ever because, not only they want to get it right, but it's a different kind of right? It's a different kind of mindset that for me, I was able to channel into. When I was with them, it was more or less the moves, right? Getting the moves exactly where we wanted to be, and it's about that timing. And I felt like for me, it was just about teaching them the ego that I have as a competitive person, right? And flushing that ego inside of them to become that basketball player within them being actresses. So there's that competitive piece. Normally when you are a woman in a leadership position, right? Sometimes we can get called another name, which is fine. That's just being assertive, being aggressive, and going after what you want. Because for us, for any leader, there's always a bigger purpose, right? And then we're fighting for everybody else. And I use that competitive component, and I use my womanness. I use my smile to basically be able to double down on what I'm saying, because you're going to have to get it. Because if you don't get it, you're going to lose it. And so it's just that whole nother realm of a perspective that I think is shown. And then I'll tell you, my partner who, has two ADs. I'm one, and then there's another AD at my school. And sometimes if I know that I'm not getting what I need in terms of us working with other people around or even with parents, I'll just ask him. I'm like, hey, listen, can you call this joker and get this done? And he'll do it, and it's vice versa, because sometimes he gets caught up with people that can't relate to him, and then he'll use me. So we kind of, we'll double team it if we can, and if we will, we'll do it. But I just think that overall, at some point, it's either they're gonna respect it or they'll just leave it alone. And that's been my experience as an athletic director, where it's either you're going to understand that what I say is actually what's going to happen, or you're just going to have to find some place to move on.
I think also what you said about the kind of aggressive personality that comes with these women who have an athletic background, I think it's just another transferable skill. I see it as something you can turn on or turn off. You can put that on, and then the next day you can bring in a different kind of more feminine energy to the room and relate to whoever needs to get what. And I think that's one of the strengths of being a Black female athlete and artist, that we can tap into whatever we need. I was talking to someone today about even just doing this show. The character Star Jones, it says in the script she's relentless, she's a fighter, she's a go-getter, she is unapologetic. Some might even call her another name, you just said. But that's been something that I, as Hailey, have been able to tap into and find this power and this strength just by becoming this character every night. finding this new way of owning a space. I'm the captain of this team. That's no different than being what you're doing in, you know what I mean? Taking on a leadership role. And it's to me, it's just another transferable skill. I don't see it in any way as something that can be an issue or hinder my growth. I see it as a benefit.
I can give you a little bit of an example. I'm gonna talk about Hailey something. I brought my basketball, which had my initials on. Their basketball's a little bit smaller. So when it was time and they were rehearsing the play and we went closer to do our tech thing, Hailey said, "Hey, Pedro, is this your ball?" I mean, get it off the court because we don't need this ball. He's confusing us anymore. But just using that power to say, like, your time is up, dude. Get your ball on off, which was great. But it was the way it was done. It's like, hey, we own this stuff. We don't need your stuff up in the middle of our stuff, which is great.
So I have another question for the actors, the directors. YouTube, right? This whole new platform that allows individuals to create their own content, and there's no gatekeepers. And I mean, I watch a ton of Black content on YouTube. Can you speak to that, and what does that look like? What's the future for Black creators, given that we have those sorts of platforms?
And we're going to repeat the question. Given the platforms that we have, YouTube being an example, what are the venues for storytelling for Black creators now that we have more access?
I think that with any change and in growth, there's good parts about it, great parts about it, and then things that may be challenges. And I'll tell you that actually from an artistic and educational aspect, because it's so funny. I literally just talked to my class about this today. From the artistic standpoint, it's beautiful because someone like Issa Rae, who created and starred in Insecure, if I'm not mistaken, her series was on YouTube, The Misadventures of the Awkward Black Girl, and it started there. And then next thing you know, bam, she's on HBO. So when you see that and you hear those stories, you love it because it's like, wow, it's like, that's how she got an HBO gig. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's the beautiful thing. So then let me tell you my educational from a standpoint. I was talking to my students because it's like, you will get a whole lot of great content and then sometimes it's not.
Right.
But that's just the work. And of course, that's my artistic, opinion. And I think that happens on any levels because, I said, just because you can upload something to YouTube doesn't necessarily mean that it's good.
Right.
But I think with anything, it's artistic integrity and artistic responsibility, because I think easier access doesn't negate you still doing good work. And I think, so that to me is the thing, especially with teaching my students. And so giving an example of what I said today too, I said, I was like, when I'm giving them to work on monologues or something, they'd be like, oh, I went to YouTube and I watched. I said, stop right there.
Stop right there.
I said, stop right there. I said, it's like math. I said, you remember how, I said, you can watch them and you can copy everything that they're doing. I said, but you go into the audition and they give you an adjustment. I said, it's like math. You remember how in math, they always said you couldn't just give them an answer. You had to do what? Show your work.
Show your work.
And I said, in an audition, that's exactly what they want you to do. They want you to show your work. And it's like, you're not acting, you're copying. You're not creating. And so I think a lot of times, and Coach said it, she said they want to skip steps.
Yeah.
So my thing is to anybody, creating this content, it's like, and you have the access, still tap into that artistic integrity to say, I still want to do good work. Mm-hmm. Because also here's the thing too, it's just like, entertainment is like sports like this. It's competitive. Because there's so much content out here, especially like streaming content. You know how many? Okay, I'm sure we all right here, right now, probably spend so much money each month for the 12 million things that we stream. Netflix, Hulu, all those things. So it's like, in order for you to be competitive and you know, and actually connect to people, it's like, it gotta be good.
It's gotta be good.
Otherwise, they can stream something else.
I think on top of that too, just as an actor, one of the reasons I love theater is because it forces you to really hone in on your craft. I think sometimes when it comes to, you know, YouTube, where you're creating your own content, you don't necessarily have to have the training, right? Or the tools that are needed. When I step on the stage, I have to engage my entire body. I mean, I'm talking about when it comes to voice, articulation, your understanding of your beats and all of that stuff that I think a lot of these up and coming artists are not trained to do. They think they could just go up there and be funny. And you might be funny once.
Right.
But the thing is, can you be funny? Exactly, night after night. The sustainability, I don't know if it's there with some of these newer artists. And that's why I always will come back to the theater, because that's where I get my chops back. And I know that if I can do this, I can do anything. And I think that's also like with, even as an athlete too, like you go back to the fundamentals. That's where you get the tools and all of the, you know, the things that you really need to be able to sustain your craft.
I think there's no argument for excellence. I think when you're excellent, that shuts everything down. I think that, talking about longevity, things work in three forms: education, application, and presentation. I always tell the young people, you know, you have to figure out where you are in that spectrum. I'm in my education part of it, or I need to sit beside somebody and be quiet and learn what that is, so I can learn what that is. Then I get a chance to apply it. But I think on whereas content, yeah, everybody can create some content, but the longevity of that content, you have to get better cameras, you got to get better lights, you got to get better sound, you got to get the production value, as well as the talent had to be upgraded. But that's the learning process. If you're willing as a person to get better with your content, to grow as it, like we all do, like a trade, and get better as your videos get better, we're gonna follow that because the content is getting better, right. How we can hear better, we can see better, we can learn better, and it's something that we don't know when we're interested in. So I think if it grows to a level, or they're willing to grow in it, but it's definitely about being excellent about. So every time we see it, there's a quality of it that we enjoy and participate in.
Thank y'all, all of y'all, for being here today and having this conversation. And before we end, though, we want to bring down our brave leaders from both institutions to send us off.
Shoot! Yeah.
Turn it.
Well, y'all, thank you so very much for coming here. My name is Jamil Jude. I have the pleasure of being artistic director at Kenny Leon's True Colors Theater Company. On behalf of everybody on staff, first off, I just want to say thank you to your Theatrical Outfit for being a partner here on this one. Matt and I, we had the pleasure of starting our artistic journeys here in Atlanta around the same time, so it's really good to partner with you and your organization on this. Thank you to our amazing panel. Addae, you always do a great job moderating. Coach, thank you very much. Hailey, Pedro, and Eric, who is going to be the director of True Colors' 20th anniversary production of that series, He-Man Ball. He mentioned earlier that the show has an amazing Atlanta legacy in True Colors as we reclaim ours in our 20th anniversary season, and really reclaiming the legacy of True Colors and what it means to not just Atlanta, but Black theater community. Really excited that Eric is going to be helming that production to talk about Black male masculinity and how we find it on the basketball courts often. Big shout out to LaNiyah, big shout out to Hands in Motion, shout out to Candace Jones, one of our playwrights, and the playwright and the blueprint behind this fantastic production of Flex. I'm just back in town, so I cannot wait to see the show. Before I let you all go, True Colors, this is part of our community conversation series, and we're gonna have a complete slate of community conversations. So I hope that you check out and wait for our announcement for the fantastic work that Brandon Jones and our connectivity department does. Come check back with us soon for our full slate. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you so much. Just want to thank you for being here and thank everybody who had any part in putting this amazing conversation together. I really just have one thing to say, which is come and see Flex. It's an incredible play. This cast are just on fire. Yeah. And this story, it's difficult to box it in to just one thing, just one theme. It's rich, it's resonant, it's about now. I think it showcases the best of what Atlanta theatre has to offer. And please come and see it.